Hi everybody, TJ Mac Vintage Cards here, and today I'm going to do a video where I'm going to show off a few of my recent acquisitions, as well as talk a little bit about my focus for 2022. But the first card I want to show today is this Al Dark from 1952 Bowman. And as you can see there, next to it is a sport magazine from May of 1952 with Al Dark on the cover, holding his bat on his shoulder there with his foot on the top of the dugout. And the 52 Bowman card is just really a beautiful image of his, and I'm going to show a little bit of a close-up, a little bit more of a close-up of it in a second. But first I'll just talk some about Al Dark. He was a shortstop with the Giants. He started off with the Boston Braves in 1948 at the age of 26. Like many players at that time, he got a late start into the league because of World War II. He had some military time. And I really wish Hall of Fame voters would take that under consideration. Those men that served their country, a lot of them had later careers. And I've showed some of those guys like Vic Raschi and, of course, Al Dark here. And I know Phil Rizzuto's in the Hall of Fame. He lost a few years to the war. But it really should be taken under consideration because these men served their country and they didn't really have the chance to put up the numbers they could have maybe put up if they played longer. So there should be a way to kind of look at their production and say, okay, if they would have had these years, this would have added onto their numbers this amount. I'm not saying making them official stats, but really, if you want to be a Hall of Fame voter, you really have that responsibility to weigh those different things, in my view. So a guy like Al Dark gets lost a little bit in the shuffle because of that. Well, anyway, he won the Rookie of the Year with the Boston Braves when he came into the league in 1948. He also finished third in the MVP voting that year behind Stan Musial and Johnny Sain. He was then traded to the Giants in 1950, where he went to 3 All-Star games and then won a World Series in 1954, where he also finished 5th in the league in the MVP voting. Now, he was the team captain during his time with the Giants, and he would have been a contemporary of Hall of Fame shortstops Rizzuto and Reese. And I think statistically, he's right there with both of them. Both he and Reese have 126 home runs in their career, and Al Dark actually has some power. He actually hit over 20 home runs one year as a shortstop in the 1950s. Is really pretty remarkable. And all three of these guys were excellent fielders. Dark had very good range for a shortstop at that time. And Dark had a higher batting average at 289 than Reese at 266 and Rizzuto at 273. Now, Reese had more RBIs and runs than Al Dark, but Dark had more than Rizzuto in pretty much every category. In my view, Reese was the best of the three of them, but I certainly think you can make a case that Dark was superior to Phil Rizzuto. And I'm a Yankees fan, so I tend to be biased, I would think. But I think Al Dark, certainly you can make a case that he was superior to Rizzuto. And he also became a manager after he retired in 1960, and he managed the Giants to a pennant in 1962 and won a World Series in 1974 with the Oakland A's. So I just think this is a really nice card. I'm going to pause here for a second. I just want to show you a closer up, and I want to talk about where this image came from. Now, what's really cool about this card is you can see there's a black and white photo on the left that I printed out, and it's a SGC card that's a 1952 Bowman proof. And Bowman did production proofs, and this was one of the images they used was this Al Dark. As you can see, it's black and white, and I read it didn't have a real glossy surface sheen, and there's no facsimile signature, as you can see on the 52 Bowman cards. There's not much known about these cards other than they were prototypes that are somehow related to the production of the Bowman baseball cards. Now, all examples of these proofs originated many years ago directly from the files of George Moll, who worked with Bowman, and it's not known specifically what their purpose was. But they were either an early production design sample for 1952 baseball or an alternative design format prototype from the late in 1952. And this may have led to the larger design used in the 53 Bowman issue. And this Al Dark here, I think is just real interesting to me is because you can see in the background the protective netting there. And then on the Bowman color card itself, I'll just zero in on it a little bit, you can see the netting in the background here. Right in there, and they actually carry that over into the image, which I like. It almost looks like a spider web. So I think it's a really great looking card, one that's really fun to look at because you can see a lot of intricate detail on it with the netting. And sometimes they would remove some of the detail from the photo to the card, and I'm really glad they kept that in this one because it looks like a spider web almost that's behind him. So this is one that I'm really glad to add for both its artistic beauty, having another great shortstop to go with my Fern Stevens card, and also I have a Phil Rizzuto I'm going to show in a second here. So this is the Al Dark. As I mentioned, I added a 52 Bowman Phil Rizzuto as well, and I've been really liking adding these Yankees from that 5 straight World Series championship run they had from 49 to 53, and I thought Rizzuto is a great one to add. And I really like this card of him. I also like the 50 and 51 Bowmans, but the 52 Bowman is one that I really enjoy because it's showing him bunting, and he was just a masterful bunter. And he has a few cards that show him bunting. One is the 53 Bowman, and then also the 52 Burke Ross as well. And I'm not sure if the 51 does, but the 52 does, I know for sure because I saw it. But this one, I really captured my eye because of the fact that he is in the bunting pose here. And I thought that was really a good symbol of really what he brought to those Yankee teams, is that small ball, get on base type nature that he brought to the plate, as well as he was a great defensive shortstop, very slick fielding. So this is one that I was real happy to add, trying to pick away at some of these Yankees from that run so I can really capture that piece of history into my collection. What's really cool about that Rizzuto, too, is that it's in the pinstripes, and you can see quite a bit of the pinstripes on the uniform. And you can also see how baggy the uniforms were back then with the folds shown in the photograph that was painted over. Just a really nice image captured from that great era of baseball. The next card I want to show is a football card. I've been acquiring quite a few football cards lately, especially from the 50s to the 70s. I really like this 59 top set, so when I do see them and they're a pretty decent price, I'll pick them up. But I've been looking specifically for this rookie card of John David Crow, and it says Johnny Crow on here. And Johnny Crow, one of the things you can note on the card here, if you could see it a little more closely, is his face is partially paralyzed on the left side of his face. And he was born that way, but he was really just an outstanding football player. He won the Heisman Trophy as a halfback in 1957, playing for the legendary coach Bear Bryant and his Texas A&M Aggies. That was before he went to Alabama. And Bryant called him the greatest player he ever coached. He was drafted by the Chicago Cardinals in the second overall in 1957, and he played 11 seasons in the NFL as a halfback, a fullback, and a tight end. So you can see he was a pretty versatile player. He was also the first Cardinal to ever rush for over 1,000 yards in 1960, and he averaged an amazing 5.9 yards a carry, and this was just in a 12-game season. He also scored 17 touchdowns in 12 games in 1962. Now, Johnny Crow is not in the Hall of Fame, but he is on the Hall of Fame's NFL All-1960s team as a halfback. And again, that was selected by the Hall of Fame, so I have sometimes difficulty making that connection, why he would not be a Hall of Famer. He was really an excellent player for his time. And just to tell you how good a player he was, the Browns offered him, Jim Brown, they offered the Cardinals straight up for Johnny Crow. That's how respected Crow was. And believe it or not, the Cardinals turned him down. And supposedly they offered him twice for Johnny Crow. And again, they turned him down. That was because Brown really was a better running back. There's no doubt about that. But Crow was viewed by contemporaries at that time, many of them, as the better all-around player because he could run, he could catch, he could throw. And Jim Brown was not viewed quite as versatile as Johnny Crow was, even though he was by far the better running back itself. But it just goes to show you that when you really get an understanding of how the games were played at that time and really try to understand how players were thought of in that era, you really get a whole new impression of them that time often forgets when you look back on these players. So this is one I'm really excited to add, and this kind of goes along with my 2022 focus, is that I'm starting to look at those types of cards of players that really have that relevance to the time they played, even though if history might not remember them as well. So for 2022, my approach has really been doing a lot of research like I've been doing in 2020 and 2021 for that matter, is just going through and looking at different books and learning about the players that played in the past, not necessarily all the Hall of Famers, and trying to take that information and read more about those players and see if there's somebody that I really want to add to my collection and learn more about, and just, something I just want to share in my card room. And I've really enjoyed that journey because it's really allowed me to gain an appreciation for a lot of those players that may not be in the Hall of Fame, but were very relevant players of their day. And again, men like Al Dark, who lost time to the war, was a very good player, again, comparable to a Phil Rizzuto, but didn't make the Hall of Fame. So I don't really want to remove somebody from that, have being represented in my collection. So one of the books I look at is this book here, like this Baseball Chronicles, which goes through different years. And I just read about the players, and it doesn't tell you a ton about them, but it just tells you what they contributed in those particular seasons, and that enables me to go and read more about the players, learn about them, and say, okay, yeah, this is somebody that I really would like to add to my collection. And then I find cards that I like. And I have other books I look at as well. And then with football, I tend to watch a lot of videos of football from the past, because NFL Films did such a fantastic job of recording the history of football. And there's some pretty good documentaries on the AFL players and things like that. So this really enables me to get a good understanding of the eras, and then puts a focus on what cards I want to add. Because many of the big name Hall of Famers and that, I have as many as I want to get of some of those cards. So now I'm just really trying to deepen my collection. So that's going to be my focus for 2022. And of course, I'm looking forward to putting out some more videos and just sharing some insights and some cards from my collection with the community. So that's all for today. Everybody have a great day.